You know, the people here are just folks, and you got to understand people as people, and that's the sort of first thing. And this one person here it says we're certainly not animals to be kept in a zoo and somebody throws food over the wall to us every time. But trying to bring the humanity of the issue to people, I think, is an important message. The first thing people here need is hope. Probably anybody to survive, you need hope. And the second thing is respect for the humanity. And I have vast respect for these people. And then we have to get to work, of course, on some humanitarian aid and rebuilding aid, but again, that has to come in a political context which gives them a hope for a real future. You look at the children here that we've seen throughout this day and in the previous days and of course on other trips. And they're beautiful. They're just beautiful. Smile. Somehow they manage still to smile. How can you be shaking for 25 minutes and then run? The children are resilient in a lot of ways and run around smiling later. But they deserve a future just like our kids have. And we won't have the kind of future that we want unless these children have a chance at that future. You know, they need to be able to get that way. So I think that's part of it, trying to tie what is a real connection that we see between people of Palestine and our own existence in the United States. We're wedded together whether we like it or not. And so we need to figure out how to make that, I guess, a happy marriage. And it can be. The people here will somehow have the capacity to, first of all, make a distinction between Americans coming here and our foreign policy, which for them is atrocious. This, you know, the United States largely paid to build some of these factories here, to build, for instance, you look at the electrical plant that was destroyed or partially destroyed a few years ago. And the United States built it, the United States insured it, and the United States bombed it. And with us, that's largely true for the whole strip, that through U.S. aid money and some other things, a lot of this was built with U.S. money. It was certainly bombed with U.S. ammunition. The United States paid and actually transported the fuel for this, somewhat during the summer, while we were paying $4 a gallon for gas. We were also shipping gas to Israel for use here. And now we're talking about rebuilding it again with U.S. dollars. You know, enough is enough. I absolutely think we need to rebuild the Gaza Strip, but it has to be rebuilt with the standards of political standards that need to go around that so that it's not going to be bombed apart again.
I think we need to insist on accountability for what has happened here. I know that there have been calls for investigation into specific incidents. I don't know exactly the form that that's going to take. I was really happy to hear before we left the United States that Senator Leahy, I believe, had called for investigation of one incident where 2 young men were killed when they were traveling with their father. We visited the father, heard his story. They were out traveling during the time when there was a 3-hour kind of ceasefire each day when people could go out into their neighborhoods and so forth. I'm glad that Senator Leahy called for that, but I noted that he called for an Israeli investigation. And I'm here as a witness to the fact that I think it's impossible for the Israelis to investigate themselves properly in this situation. It didn't happen, it hasn't happened yet in Rachel's case. That's according to the U.S. government. The position of the U.S. government is that her case has not been thoroughly, credibly, and transparently investigated. I have no confidence that that can happen with all that has happened here in the Gaza Strip. So somehow through other resources, through the international community, but also in the U.S. By finding some way that we make determinations about how our weapons were used here. Craig and I saw the evidence of white phosphorus yesterday.
We saw the white phosphorus.
We saw the white phosphorus yesterday in homes that were destroyed. And so we need to find ways to document, to have an adequate investigation about what's happened, and then have accountability according to our own laws, the Arms Export Control Act, our financing of foreign military aid and so forth, the Leahy Amendment. There are different avenues for doing that. But I hope that as American citizens, we'll start to say, no matter what Israel does, we draw the line. Because there are supposed to be consequences if our weapons are misused. And I think most Americans, if they saw this, they would want those laws enforced. They would not want to see the continuation of our spending on this kind of activity.
I'm a Vietnam vet, and so I lived under threat for over 11 months of the year. And you grow close to the people around you. You survive because of the people around you. And you become incredibly attached to the people around you. And I know I worried so much when Rachel was here, not just about her health while she was here and surviving being here, but then what it would be like to go home, because I knew she was staying with family, she was staying with children, she was staying with people that won't be able to leave when she was able to leave. And I feel a little, more than a little bit of that now. We're able to leave. And as Rachel wrote, you can't really understand this place until you come. And even then, you don't really understand it. She said, I don't understand it because I had the money to buy water and I have the freedom to leave. These people don't.
I think this trip I was able to take in some ways more. The other, we've been here twice before, and for different reasons. Those were both really emotional and kind of traumatic visits at times. Parts of it were. But I was struck, kind of surprised, even as we were coming in from the crossing in Rafah, about the land, the farmland, how much farmland I was seeing, and the sheep. And there's a way of life here. People live here, even though they are under, just unbelievable pressures and such terrible things happening day to day to day. People killed nearly every day. But people live here, and I was struck by that much more. The women out taking care of the fields, the people herding the sheep and the goats. And there's, in the rural areas, the families who are, a family life is very important, and people get together and they enjoy each other and they sustain each other. So, through the hardship, there's a great deal of life happening here. And I think I heard John Ging say, this is a civilized people, and I don't remember the end of his comment, but something about in a prison, I believe in a prison. And for me, this is a civilized people with tremendous forces working against them to really, as Rachel said, to erase them. And I believe that if we can shift that so that there are more forces working to, in solidarity with the people of Palestine to build the lives that they want, there's all the potential for that to happen.
Cindy and Craig Corrie speaking on the Rafah border with Democracy Now! Producer Angelique Comet. Their daughter Rachel Corrie was crushed to death by an Israeli military bulldozer that was manufactured by the Illinois-based company Caterpillar. Rachel was killed on March 16, 2003, 6 years ago today. Special thanks to Democracy Now!'s Angelique Comet and Jackie Suin of Big Noise Films. We'll be bringing you more of their coverage in the coming days. Also, last month, Israel paid around $2 million in damages to the family of a British cameraman who was shot by an Israeli soldier a few weeks after Rachel in 2003. The family of James Miller accepted the payment, saying it was as close to admission of guilt from Israel as they were ever likely to get. Miller was in Gaza working on a documentary about Palestinian children caught up in the conflict. The documentary, Death in Gaza, later aired on HBO and won 3 Emmys. And that's it for today's broadcast. You can go to our website at democracynow.org. Democracy Now! Produced by Mike Berkshire, producer Aramata, Angelique Comet, Robbie Karen, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Hani Massoud. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.